Welcome to Cigars and Syndications. I'm Junaid Noor, and we are passionate about real estate and we are passionate about cigars. I'm here with my co-host Robbie Rogers, and we want you to. The goal of this podcast is to teach you about real estate and teach you about cigars as well. So sit back, light up, and enjoy the show.
Hey guys, today we're going to be smoking the Illusione Epernay. We're smoking a Turo, which is a 6-inch with a 50 gauge ring. Um, Originates in Honduras, but it has a Nicaraguan binder and wrapper with a Nicaraguan and Dominican filler. Um, we just lit these up. It's got a really good draw to it so far. Creamy and a little bit of pepper. I'm really liking it so far. What do you think, Jay?
Very good cigar. I always like the Illusion, and it sounds like a fancy cigar company, but they're really out of Reno, Nevada. Uh, and I just smoked the other day. I smoked the MJ12, which was a Maduro, dark. It had been sitting in my humidor for over a year, so it was a very dark, and it had become uh, very strong cigar, very robust. For this one, I really like the draw so far since we just lit it. It's very peppery. I get some creaminess, and I think we're going to enjoy this cigar, and we'll talk about it as we talk about our show.
Yes, I'm a few puffs in already, and the peppery's kind of going down a little bit. I'm getting a nice nutty flavor. Really smooth. I'm really digging this Illusion so far. And today we're going to kind of go full circle. We're circling back to episode 5. We did horizontal construction, and we promised you we'd do a segment on vertical construction. So here we are today. We're going to talk about vertical construction and some of the challenges and things that you need to be aware of as you go through the vertical construction process.
So just to recap, horizontal construction is when the all the components of construction that are underground, connecting to the municipal utility district, and all the way up through the foundation. And then vertical construction is from the foundation upwards.
Correct. Yes, and the vertical construction and some of the bigger differences is when you're in the horizontal construction phase, you're dealing more with civil engineers, heavy civil construction, and as you get into the vertical construction, you're dealing more with the architects and the general contractors.
So, some of the things that people need to worry about or look out for when they are doing vertical construction. Number one thing I think right now or these days is material costs, right? But from the time that we get permitting done or architectural drawings done, all the way to permitting, all the way to horizontal construction being completed, when we start our vertical construction, we find out that material prices have gone up significantly.
Right. I mean, and just like with the horizontal construction, vertical construction has the same constraints, right? You have your budget, you have your cost, and you have your risk. And they're similar between the two. With vertical construction, you really have to put a good team together and work, well with your partners in the process. There's a lot of different challenges with permits. There's structural issues. There's all types of things that you really need to do your due diligence on, partner with the right people, and to have a successful project.
I know, for example, one of the projects we were doing, it was inside the city of Houston, and it was a retail center with bricks on the outside. And what had happened was that our bricklayer had not gotten a city inspection for the brick ties. And so they started laying the brick without having the city inspect the brick ties. And when the city came in, uh, they were like, "Well, you didn't have a brick tie inspection. We need you to remove all the bricks, so we can look at the ties in the back, and so we can relay the bricks." And that was a headache and obviously costly endeavor.
Yeah, there's really the coordination through the vertical construction is imperative. The schedule, staying on budget are all things that we all know we have to do during this process. Some of the biggest differences in the horizontal scheduling versus the vertical scheduling. It seems that once you get to the vertical stage, you're less dependent on municipalities and permitting and things that really hold you back and are very time consuming. Once you get that building permit, you will have some inspections along the way, but you can typically speed things up in some of these projects, including like multifamily projects. I mean, you can really move fast.
And one of the things that I found in some of my projects that I've done, and you've done a lot more projects than I have, is that vertical construction is a lot more management intensive. It's a lot more complex in the sense that you have to coordinate a lot of different trades. Horizontal construction is simpler in the sense that there's a water line, there's a sanitary line, there's a storm line, and there's grading. So it's not a lot of components, but once you pour that parking lot concrete or that foundation concrete, if you have done something wrong in horizontal construction, it could be very, very devastating.
That's an excellent point. I think that in a lot of cases, your civil contractor, he encompasses all of those parameters in their scope. And so you don't have a lot of trades out there. Once you get into vertical construction, you have to understand that sometimes their schedule might be 6 weeks. However, it might keep somebody from starting, but they may be able to start in the middle of that 6 weeks. So understanding how all of the schedules overlay can really speed your projects up. And in some cases, you have 200 people on site to complete a project, and they're all trying to accomplish different things, but they all have to work together.
Yeah, vertical construction can be a project management challenge, and it's very important to make sure that you have a good project manager who is updating the schedules and keeping all of the trades aligned. On one of my first projects, um, what had happened was that I had an air conditioning guy who gave me a quote, and it was my first project. I didn't know any better. He gave me a quote, and his was a better quote than everybody else. And I'm like, go ahead and install it. So he comes in to install the air conditioner, and he says, "Well, there are no curbs. Well, the curbs are the reinforced settings that you put the air conditioning units on the roof." And so he goes, "There's no curbs here." And I'm like, "Well, aren't you supposed to put the curbs in?" He goes, "No, that's not in the quote. I could put them in, but it'll be extra." So I was like, "Well, wait a minute. That's really, it's kind of very devious."
Subcontractors love change orders.
Oh yeah, they love change orders. And so if you don't know something like, well, the curbs are the responsibility of the person who's putting in the air conditioning unit, and you get a little bit of a little bit of a devious subcontractor, he's gonna know you don't know, and then he's gonna arrive that day and he's gonna be like, "Well, curbs are not in. Sorry, you got to pay extra. I can do it for you, but it's not part of the original contract."
And that's exactly why, I mean, in some cases, there are people that they just want the cheapest price, and they don't really look into their quotes. There's subcontractors and contractors out there that will bid it exactly as it's specified by the architect. However, they know that they can't perform it that way. And so making relationships with people and going for quality over the cheapest price always is sometimes it's a really sound investment. Invest in the people, invest in their companies, and understand that the partnership is necessary for success. And so grow to appreciate some of these contractors' honesty when they point out things that are missing. It's not just an opportunity for them to make more money. It's an opportunity for you to understand that maybe there's a gap in what the architect's vision is and how they see getting there.
Yeah, I've seen that a lot where, there is a gap in what the architect is envisioning and the practicality of it. Um, so one of the things that people should understand is the process of vertical construction. The process basically is that you have to put the structure up, put the roof up, seal the building with your exterior components, and then start the interior. I actually had a person who was building a house, and first time they were doing it. It wasn't me, it was somebody else. So, okay. Um, they started putting drywall up and they had the roof up. Started putting the drywall up, but they hadn't put all the windows in. Well, when it starts raining, all the drywall gets destroyed, you know? So some of the things that people need to understand is that construction always goes from the ground up, right? So you do your horizontal, then you do your vertical structure. You seal the building up with all your windows and doors. Then you start the interior, which is your plumbing, electrical, drywall. Do you have any stories where you've seen nightmares because people didn't follow the correct process?
Oh yeah, Jay. There's plenty of stories out there, and understanding the entirety and the scope of your project is very important. I was on a healthcare project where we closed in the facility, and we didn't realize the size of the MRI machine, and basically had to undo a lot of construction that had already been completed, and it was on our dime. So, really, you've got to understand everything all the way into the fixtures of the building. You have to go from top to bottom to get everything encompassed. And I hate to distract from the topic a little bit, but this Illusion is really mellowing out. I'm getting a little bit of a maybe a nice creamy tea flavor. It's a really good, I think, a medium body smoke, and it just burns beautifully.
Yeah, no, I feel the same way. It is. I'm still getting a little bit of pepper because I think I'm not as further along as you are, but it is mellowing out, and I'm getting a nice creamy flavor. Um, I'm not getting the tea, but I am getting some nut, and I'm getting a little bit of coffee. So the other thing people need to understand about vertical construction is timelines. Um, when you're putting a project together, lead times are very important, and same issue that I had, where the owner wanted certain fixtures, light fixtures, and because we waited too long, the lead times were 6 and 8 weeks, and we're pretty much done with the project, but there are no light fixtures, or we don't have the light fixtures that the owner wants.
Yeah, no, it's crucial, and it's a different environment. A lot of these suppliers are not carrying the inventories they used to. It's imperative that you pay attention to how long these fixtures take, whether it be plumbing, electrical, flooring, even door hardware. Things that were typically available in 3 to 4 weeks can be months. I mean, 6 months, 8 months. So pre-ordering this stuff and warehousing it and storing it so that it is available when the trades are ready for it can really speed your projects up.
And then the other issue was that I ran into one time in one of my very early projects was um, the we were building a Dairy Queen, and with franchise restaurants, they have very specific requirements on colors, fixtures, and details. And so one of the issues that we had was that Dairy Queen has a red colored tile below their drive-through window. And so I thought, okay, it's red colored tile. So, I bid it as regular tile. So that specific red color, they wanted the exact color code. And that specific red color was almost 3 times the price than what I bid because that's the color. That was their color. And they're not going to take any red. They wanted that shade. So you have to be very specific about plans.
100% the devil's in the details, and you have to go back to make a great partnership with an architect, how things are specified, whether they're exclusive, whether substitutions are allowed. Each owner is very different. Some are looking for value, others are very specific, and money's no object, and they're going to have very specific products and that you can't deviate from. So you may have something very similar and you may price it and your sub may include it in their price, but it's not an exact match. And if the architect doesn't specify it correctly, you're going to have to match it.
Well, in this case, the architect did specify correctly. I just thought, hey, it's just tile. It's, $2 a square foot. But that specific tile, and luckily for me, because it's just a drive-through window, it wasn't a lot of tile, but it was 3 times the price. So this was, me being naive, thinking tile's tile. Well, tile is not tile. And if you don't go and specify the exact color and the exact match, then you'll bid it wrong and you'll wind up losing money.
So yeah, it's very important to pay attention to all the specifications. I was on a project one time, and they had a very specific type of glass that was specified, and we had some similar substitutes that we tried to substitute, and we spent way too long trying to get the substitute approved, and ultimately we failed at getting the substitute approved, which would have saved us a ton of money, and we had to go with the originally specified product. Um, the really bad impact on it was that the specified product's lead time was 6 to 8 months. Our substitute was only 6 or 8 weeks. So unfortunately, we did have to wait it out, and we were forced to put in temporary windows in order to stay on schedule and on track with finishing out the interior of the building. So there's a lot of things to consider when looking at these projects. I mean, we're not trying to oversimplify it. There's literally thousands of line items that it takes to get these jobs done. And paying attention to each one of them is important, not just for financial reasons, but for timing purposes.
Now, interestingly enough, that you talk about substitutions or substitute material, a lot of people feel that they can order things from China directly instead of buying them from the US and substitute those. My experience has been buyer be very aware. Buyer beware, because what happens is that we were, trying to find a substitute for some roof panels, insulated roof panels on a project, and we got some quotes from China, and it turns out that they don't fit exactly the way you want them to fit. A lot of them are not UL certified. A lot of them are their measurements will be off a little bit, even though the samples look good, but they won't exactly fit. What has been your experience?
It really, you have to be careful when it comes to substitution. Some architects leave it wide open, and they give a very broad parameter, and it's kind of, I don't want to say it's easy to get them approved, but way easier when the specifications are left open, and it can be dangerous, and quality can suffer. Um, you really have to pay attention to your customer. A lot of that's customer driven. Some of these guys want it cheap, 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 and they stay on you the whole time, and they drive the cost down. And sometimes that impacts the quality of your project, and therefore you're forced, in order to make the budget, you're forced to make some choices that may not be what you ultimately would have put in if it was your building.
And I've had, not even just the things like roof panels or drywall or things like that, but plumbing fixtures, light fixtures. Lots of times they don't fit properly with um, uh, our piping that we have. So you have to be very careful when you're ordering from foreign countries, and you have to know exactly the dimensions, specifications, the fit. Make sure that it's going to pass inspection. That's the other thing, right? Lots of times, especially lighting, is not UL certified, and it may not pass inspection.
Yeah, I know for sure, and a lot of there's a dirty word out there, and it's called contingency, and a lot of owners hate to see that on their quotes and on their invoices. But with the nature of today's markets, you really have to have a contingency in there, and it prevents you from having to go back to the owners and ask for additional funding. But there's such, I mean, there's the pricing swings can be huge. Just one shortage, one delivery shipment issue, and the prices just seem to skyrocket right now. And so be sure and talk through with your contractors and your subcontractors. Make sure that they're all comfortable with their pricing. Make sure you understand the length of their quotes. Sometimes people will give you a quote and it'll be good for 30 days. Sometimes it's good for 60 days. Sometimes it's good for a week. So make sure that everybody really protects themselves, and that contingency can be your friend.
So I just got a nice draw of peanut butter on the roof of my mouth with this. I don't know if you're getting peanut butter, but it tastes really good. I'm a
I'm
big fan of peanut butter.
definitely getting a nice peanut butter flavor. It's really smooth. This is a really good cigar. I'm really enjoying it, and the sweetness is definitely coming through. About definitely in the second third of the cigar.
So one of the other things that I think a lot of our audience would be interested in is not just the construction portion, but a smaller part of the actual construction portion, which is remodel. And we could do a whole episode on just remodel, but I think that what they need to be aware of is that when you're remodeling, you really don't know what you're getting into until you start opening up walls. Case in point, we had to do a remodel of a jewelry store that we were converting to a restaurant, and the jewelry store has a huge safe, which costs it's very expensive to remove and then move off the premises. And that was something that, even though the owner wanted to stay within a certain budget, and we gave them a budget for the remodel, the renovation, but that safe was just like, we need to find a specialist to be able to remove that safe because it's just too big.
Well, we promised you vertical construction, and I think we delivered with a wonderful cigar. I would highly recommend picking this up if you get a chance. If you see it on the shelves, I'm pretty sure they're not easy to find. I've not seen one in a cigar shop. Have you, Jay?
Yeah, actually, I got this from my friend Sammy at Casa de Monte Cristo in Chicago. I think his website is cdmcigars.com. Again, he's not endorsing us, but we feel that he's been a good friend. He's always picking out the right cigars for us. So, we like to refer people to him. But yeah, I think we've come to the end of our podcast, and we hope you enjoyed this podcast. We have a lot of resources on www.albanyparkcapital.com. Just go to the website, hit resources, and leave some feedback. Tell us if you like the cigar, if you like the information, if you learned something. We would love to know.
Yep. Be sure and hit us on all our social medias. If you want us to smoke a particular cigar, let us know. We'd be happy to try it.